A warning tonight from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The FBI calls it a disturbing new online method of using teenagers as money mules. It comes with alleged bad actors posing as IT experts or employees of video game companies. Brian Mastry from our sister station in Omaha tonight with the latest.
The basic online scheme is not new. It's about easy money.
Individuals who have been targeted, they may have received an unsolicited email or contact over social media promising them an easy return, easy money in exchange for relatively little or no effort.
After gaining a teen's trust through social media or video gaming chat groups discussing avatars or upgrades, they asked the teen to accept payment from some of their customers and let the teen keep a percentage of that. And then those fake companies explain to the young person to change the remainder of the payment into cryptocurrency or digital money and send it back to them.
If they find a young teenager, a 14 to 15-year-old, or even a young adult that's a gamer, and they start talking in that language, that's what they're telling the individuals that they are selling. And hey, you can help facilitate this for me. Here, I'm going to sell this, but in order for me to get money in the United States, I have to have you as a U.S.-based person.
The FBI says what's really happening? The criminals are then selling links to child sexual abuse material, and the teen is sort of a middleman, the money mule, who is facilitating the buying and selling.
What we've assessed so far is that many of the young people don't really know what they're doing. What they're being approached with is an easy way to make money, and initially the initial approach, they have no idea what this is for, and they have no reason to think it's illegal.
The FBI Omaha is urging parents to talk to your kids. See if they've received any unsolicited emails or contacts like this. If so, don't respond and don't click the links.
And the FBI's advice to parents: talk to your children about this. Ask if they've received unsolicited email or have been contacted about this too good to be true deal. If you believe your child is involved in a money mule scheme, you're asked to call the FBI and stop transferring money immediately.